My name is Blake Gillette, and I am an orthopedic surgeon, but I love writing primary music on the side. I always knew I wanted to be a doctor growing up, and I wasn't always passionate about music, but when I was young, my mom would say, Dr. Henderson, who was a urologist from Bountiful, he plays the piano, and that playing the piano makes him a better surgeon. And so she started spinning music, and you need to stick with the piano so that I would be a better surgeon. Recently, I asked her, I said, Mom, were you trying to push me into medicine, or were you trying to use something you knew I loved to get me to do more music? And she kind of gave me a sly smile, and she's like, I was encouraging you to do both. So I kind of laughed at that. But it was my mom who was the inspiration to have me learn the piano. And so the story of that goes that she saw this little young kid playing these incredible pieces at like age 5. And she felt like she hadn't given all the other kids enough attention in piano to where they could be proficient enough to just kind of play anything or whatever. And so I was the last of 6, and by 8 years, the last of 6. And so I was like an only child growing up. So she sees this kid playing, which he was doing the Suzuki method, which is where you learn by ear. And she got me into it. And I was a little late starting, but it's all by ear. So she's playing piano music over a stereo at night. I'm listening to all these things at night. Even though I fought it, I remember diving into the couch, ducking my head into the pillows. She just kept pushing, and she was never gonna give up. A mom's stubbornness, she never, ever, ever gave up on me.
Well, it became harder and harder to get Blake to practice the Suzuki. He had to listen to it all day on a machine, and then he would need to practice, and sometimes it was quite a battle, but I was determined to be one of those Suzuki mothers that won the battle. And so sometimes I would talk to him to try the piano, and he would dive in the couch, and I guess when he hated it when I clapped, didn't you? But after all that work, we finally got him on the piano.
I remember one day, my brother's friends came by, I'm practicing the piano, and I remember distinctly my brother's friend said, hey, that's really cool that you play the piano. You should keep doing that. And from that moment on, I was kind of like, yeah, this is kind of cool, isn't it? And I tell you that inspired me to keep going. And then the other thing that inspired me to keep going was my brother. And he started writing songs when he came back from his mission, and he didn't have half of the piano training that I had. And so I started to get a little competitive as well. And it's like, if he can write music, I should be able to write music. And so I started, doodling on the piano, making little tunes up and things, until eventually you get to the point where now I can kind of play things. I enjoyed it. What I didn't understand at the time, though, is chord progression. I took a songwriting class from Ron Simpson at BYU, which really taught me about music composition and structure. And that really helped me to take songs that I would just kind of write as an anthem, what now I understand to be an anthem with not a lot of structure, but just long and windy, and putting that into an organized structure. And by doing that and using chord progressions, it is more pleasing to listen to. So that all culminated almost unwittingly and serendipitously in I Will Be What I Believe. And then the final thing that kind of helped me in terms of more church or LDS, hymns and things was my dad forced me to play the piano in priesthood. And so here I am, this little sheepish 12-year-old plunking away on this Casio electric piano in the gym and playing it on like the quietest setting so that no one could hear me. Ye Elders of Israel, which was one of the easiest songs because it just played, one note in each hand at first. So I remember he forced me to play, and I did, and then I just slowly but surely built up my confidence with hymns. From there, over the years, every ward I was in, as soon as people discovered I played the piano, I would always be asked to play the piano in meetings or in the primary. But I really started playing a lot of primary music when my wife was called as the primary chorister. That's when she told me, hey, you should try to write a primary song, because I had written other things. And so she's like, we need to add something to this year's primary program. And so that was the moment where I basically thought, okay, I could write a primary song. And I just started thinking, Okay, what are my favorite things about the gospel, about the church? And it was definitely Joseph Smith and his story. It was the Book of Mormon, in particular, the stripling warrior story. I've always loved that story. It was the pioneers. It was their faith and their strength. Nephi. I just thought of my favorite story that gave me the most inspiration and built my testimony. But what really brought this song together, and where the line, "I will be what I believe," came from, is I had been studying an old talk, actually, that I remember hearing for the first time on my mission when I was in South Carolina. And the talk was Elder Oak's talk, "The Challenge to Become."
This process requires far more than acquiring knowledge. It is not even enough for us to be convinced of the gospel.
And the challenge to become was really on my mind at the time, because the beauty of that talk was that the gospel of Jesus Christ doesn't teach us just to know things, but it teaches us things to help us become like Jesus Christ, so that we can be even as he is, and that knowledge alone isn't sufficient. We need to apply that knowledge to wisdom, and that wisdom to becoming something more than what we are. And so, combining all of my favorite things that inspire me about the church with that concept, that's how it all came to be. When I wrote the song, I thought, okay, these are my favorite things, these stories, these people. What is their attribute? What is that one attribute that defines that person? And so I'll have, of course, faith, like Brother Joseph. And now I had written, this is my wife, she deserves the credit for this. I had written the hope of the pioneers. And when she heard it, she said, no, it should be strength of the pioneers. And I thought for a second, I was like, you are exactly right. When you think of pioneers, you think strength. And you think of those strong women too, that suffered so much and the loss, but they kept pushing. Can you imagine walking that far to get to where you think you can build Zion? Without prejudice, without persecution. I'll have faith like Brother Joseph, the strength of the pioneers. I'll be brave as a stripling warrior. And of course, weren't they brave? They were taught by their mothers. Again, that whole story has always stood out to me and maybe because of my music, and my mom had such a strong influence on me in terms of music, but they were taught by their mothers. And they never doubted their mothers knew it. And so they were brave because of that knowledge. I'll be brave as a stripling warrior, and like Nephi, persevere. When you think of Nephi, he persevered. He got through everything. He suffered beatings, and he suffered hunger, starvation, trials, traveling in the wilderness, and they made it to the promised land. But Nephi persevered through all of that because he knew what he was trying to accomplish, and he had confidence in God. And then I just finished off the chorus, "I will spread God's love to all I know and serve." And so to me, that line represents missionary work. I will spread God's love to all I know and serve. And then finished off with prayer of finding our center. And so I thought about praying, and I will plead with my Father on my knees. And then that line, the first thing that I kind of thought of is, I will be what I believe. What's amazing is I wrote this song back in 2012, I think. And that first line, to me, I think about like every day. And that is living in this world with change all around. If there is one line that describes what our world is right now, it's that line. And at the time, I was thinking of President Monson when I wrote it, but I've always felt that strength and stability from the prophet of God, giving us that view that we are missing. They are the watchmen on the tower. So living in this world with change all around, but with the prophet's words, I'll stand on solid ground. And so I think right out of the gate, you sing that, or you watch the kids sing that, and there's something so powerful in that statement that I think, again, resonates with me every day. I think about that. And I think another reason why this song is learnable is because it does repeat a lot. It's not a lot of additional lyrics. It's a 2-line verse and then a pre-chorus. So even though it's still hard, with questions that arise every day, I will say. And again, I think about this song and I'm like, I wrote that in there. And then when I first wrote that, I thought, is that too like depressing, or is that too questioning, with questions that arise every day? But the more I think about it, I do have questions that come up every day. And I think I don't have just this blind faith where I'll never question anything. I'm always questioning new things that come up. But that's the whole point, is with questions that arise every day, but I will say, I'll have faith, I'll be brave, I'll have strength, I'll persevere, I'll serve, and I'll pray, and I'll love. So, although we have questions, and they may be every day, because there's new stuff that comes up in the news every day, I have those core things, and that's what the chorus is to me, is it's those core values that, anchor me despite the questions that I do have going through life, because life is weird and hard. And so in the end, I end up liking the pre-chorus more by saying, you know what? It's okay to have questions in life because that's real. And that's what we deal with every day. I wanted the song to have a missionary flavor to it. So that's why in the second verse, I took it to, we'll spread the gospel wide throughout all the earth. With Jesus as our guide, we'll wield the sword of truth. And I'll just say it, I've always had a fascination with knights and castles and, King Arthur, Templar, knights. So the sword of truth is one of my favorite lines. And then against the pre-chorus, thinking back to my mission, there's tons of questions on your mission too. It's hard. It's not easy. You got to get out and work every day. You got to live with another person that you don't know that well, and you got to get along, and then you're getting questioned all the time about your faith and belief. So that same pre-chorus, which again, it's nice again to have it sung again because it's easier to remember the song. But then again, it goes back to those core values that the chorus brings out. What was crazy about the song, and this is why I know that the song is more than anything I could have written on my own, is as I had written most of the song, basically it was done. But because I love Stripping Warrior so much, I kept thinking about, Janice Cap Perry's song, Army of Helaman, or We'll Bring the World His Truth. And then in writing it, I don't know how it came about. I had never written a mashup where, you're layering songs on top of each other. I didn't know how to write a mashup, but I liked mashups. And all of a sudden I could hear her song overlying the chorus of my song, and it just fit like a glove. And from that moment on, I knew they were supposed to be together. And so after I had written the song, we're in the Rochester 4th Ward. We're always in the 4th Ward, it seems like. My wife is the primary chorister, and we have never taught this song. And it's a made-up song. We have no idea if it's gonna just bomb or what, the kids can even sing it, because it's a mashup too. If you think about it, it's kind of funny. Janice Cap Perry is the original mashup artist. You think about A Child's Prayer, Love Is Spoken Here. Janice Cap Perry did mashups. That was what she is known for. We just didn't ever use that term. But this is a totally new mashup with, two different types of songs. So what was surprising was when we taught it, and my wife taught it, I'm on the piano, is the kids just took to it. They sang it, and they sang it with power, and it seemed to really sink deep into their little hearts and their little voices as they sang it. And then we came to the mashup part, and we just had two choristers up there while I'm playing the piano, and they just kind of could do it. You could just see it in their eyes as they sang that song for the first time, that it touched them and hopefully strengthened their testimonies, And then at every ward we went to thereafter, the same thing. The kids really took to it, and they learned it easily. One of the greatest joys of my life was contacting Janice Caperi and asking for permission to use her song, and she was very gracious in letting me use that. And I got to meet her, and she was just so kind and loving and encouraging. As I met with her and I thought about it, what's really neat about a primary song, because I learned primary songs in my life, and those little primary songs built my testimony. The building blocks of my early testimony as a little kid are those songs of the Restoration, the songs, and many of those songs of Janice Caperi. And so to think about all of the little minds and the little hearts and testimonies that were just nurtured and fertilized by these beautiful, pure messages of truth, just blows your mind. It's unfathomable how powerful that is for so many little kids. So it's just an incredible blessing to contribute in some small part to these little fledgling testimonies, and hopefully just one of those lines sticks. So when they're having a hard time, whether they're a kid still or whether they're an adult, I've had many adults tell me the same thing, that the song in some way has given them inspiration to keep going.
I am so blessed to be Blake's mother. He's brought so much joy to my life with his composing and his testimony being expressed in song. And since I played the piano for our primary, it's always a thrill for me when we sing his songs in primary. And I'm just so blessed to have been the instrument that brought him into the world and persevered through Suzuki and things to bring him to the point where he could express his testimony in these beautiful songs for children. What a blessing it is to live in this day and age when we've had so many beautiful primary songs we've sung over the years, and so many wonderful composers. But the time is ripe that we need to bring in some different songs and bear our testimonies in different ways, using the old and the new and mixing them together and helping to give the children testimonies that'll burn deep in their hearts, that will stay with them through the troubles and trials that will come to them when some might be tempted to stray. We hope that these songs go deep into their hearts and will keep them on the true path.
Living in this world with change all around, but with the prophet's words, I'll stand on solid ground, even though it's still hard, with questions that arise every day. I will say, I'll have faith like Brother Joseph and the strength of the pioneers. I'll be brave as a stripling warrior, and like Nephi persevere. I will spread God's love to all I know and serve. I will plead with my Father on my knees. I will be what I believe. We'll spread the gospel wide throughout all the earth, with Jesus as our guide. We'll wield the sword of truth, even though it's still hard, with questions that arise every day. I will say, I'll have faith like Brother Joseph and the strength of the pioneers. I'll be brave as a stripling warrior, and like Nephi persevere. I will spread God's love to all I know and serve. I will plead
the music that I do, in a way, I hope heals people as well, and maybe heals some heartache, inspires them to be better in their life in some way, in some fashion, to believe in God, to feel the Spirit in their life. It's a testimony to me that this song was beyond me, and that I was just an instrument to help, bring this song to life, to help people strengthen their testimonies and hopefully gain a greater portion of the Spirit and be inspired by the messages of the church, the gospel, the Book of Mormon, prophets, in these latter days.